viewers. Now I shall discuss Module 48 that deals with import tariff and quota under perfect and imperfect competitions. Governments of different countries implement trade restriction policies to protect their domestic industries from foreign competition. Now, there are various forms of trade restriction policies that are implemented by the governments. Among them, import tariff and quota are most commonly used trade restriction policies. Both methods are used to reduce the volume of import and encourage exports. Tariffs have been used by the governments of different countries since ancient times. It is actually the oldest form of trade restriction policy. What is meant by tariff? Tariff is actually tax on imports. The purpose of imposition of tariff by the government of any country are twofold. It is used as a source of revenue, and it is also used to protect particular domestic sectors from foreign competition. Next, what is meant by quota? Quotas are quantity limits set on imports. It is used to regulate the volume of trade between nations. It should be noted here that quotas do not generate any revenue for the government. It encourages production of goods within the domestic economy. Import quotas adopted on a large scale in Europe and elsewhere in 1930s and became a major protective device. In the early 19th century, the United Kingdom used tariffs to protect its domestic agricultural sector from foreign competition, and it is famously known as Corn Laws. But tariff protection gradually declined after World War II as trade liberalization policies were undertaken by different countries under the umbrella of General Agreement of Tariffs and Trade, in short, GATT. Let us now analyze the economic effects of tariff on the tariff imposing country. The immediate impact of tariff is increase in the price of the imported good within the domestic economy. In small countries, the rise in domestic price of the good will be just equal to the amount of tariff. But in large countries, rise in domestic price of the imported good will be somewhat less than the amount of tariff, as part of the tariff will be reflected in the reduction in the international price of the imported good. We can explain the costs and benefits of tariff for the tariff imposing country with the help of a figure. Let us consider this figure. Here we assume the country is a large one, and PW is the free trade international price of the imported good for the country. When the country imposes tariff, the price of the imported good within the domestic economy increases from PW to PT. On the other hand, as the country is a large one, export price of this good reduces from PW to PT star. Now, due to rise in domestic price, consumers face a loss, and that is measured by the loss in consumer surplus. In this figure, loss in consumer surplus is represented by some of the areas A, B, C, and D. Producers of this country gain as they now receive higher price than before. And gain in producer surplus is represented by the area A in this figure. Due to tariff, government earns revenue, and that is measured by rate of tariff multiplied with the volume of import, that is sum of the areas C and E. So net cost of tariff for this country will be loss of consumer surplus minus gain in producer surplus minus government revenue. That is A plus B plus C plus D minus A minus C plus E. So ultimately we get B plus D minus E. Now the two triangles B and D represent net loss for the economy, and this is termed as deadweight loss. The country faces deadweight loss due to tariff, as imposition of tariff distorts the incentives to produce and consume. On the other hand, the country enjoys a gain of the area E, and this is termed as terms of trade gain. The country experiences this terms of trade gain as it can reduce the exportable price of the good in the foreign country. It is to be noted here, only the large countries can enjoy this part, terms of trade gain. The small countries do not get these terms of trade gain, as it cannot influence the international price of the imported good. So, for the large countries, there is a scope to gain after imposition of tariff if the terms of trade gain area is higher than deadweight loss. That is, if rectangle E is higher than the sum of the two triangular areas B and D. But the small countries always face loss due to tariff, as they experience only deadweight loss. Let us now try to understand the meaning of quota with the help of a diagram. We consider figure 2. Here the demand and supply of imports of the good are represented by DD and SS curves. Under free trade, the country imports OQ1 amount. Now, the government sets a limit on its import to the level OQ0. Now, when government implements quota, supply of imports in the domestic economy will fall, and therefore price rises in the domestic economy. Here, price rises from P0 to P1 level. And what happens to the importers? Importers now purchase OQ0 amount of import from the international market at OP0 price, and they sell the product in domestic market at OP1 price. So they get rent, economic rent, that is called quota rent. If the government wants to restrict imports by the same amount, then the same result would have been obtained if government imposed tariff at the rate P0, P1 per unit. Now we try to analyze the welfare effects of quota in this tariff imposing country. Here DD prime and SS prime curves represent the demand and supply curves of the imported good. P0 is the free trade international price of the good, and then government restricts the volume of imports by the issue of import licenses, And we see from this figure at free trade price P0, volume of import was Q1, Q2. But now government imposes a limit to the volume of import by the amount Q3, Q4, and for that price rises in the economy. Again, consumers will suffer. They will experience loss in consumer surplus, and that is represented by the sum of the areas A, B, C, and D. Due to rise in price, producers gain, and that is represented by the area A. But here, rectangular area C represents quota rent that is enjoyed by the importers of the good. But government may also get the share of this economic rent if the government auctions off the quota licenses to the importers. So, if we compare between tariff and quota, we see that in case of tariff, rectangular area C was government revenue, but here it is quota rent. But the deadweight loss part, that is B plus D, is same for both tariff and quota. Moreover, in case of tariff, production and consumption decisions are taken by the market forces. But in case of quotas, market mechanism does not operate. Here, government determines the volume of import in the country. Therefore, government controls the total domestic supply of the good. So, from the point of view of economic welfare, quotas are more harmful than tariff. But it is observed that there are some reasons for which quotas are preferred to tariffs. Economists have pointed out mainly three reasons for that. First, it is not possible to say with certainty that if price of the imported good increases in the domestic economy, fall in the volume of import will occur to what extent. If the price elasticity of demand for importable is very low, then due to rise in price of the imported good, volume of import may not fall significantly. But in case of quotas, such uncertainty does not arise. Secondly, if the foreign supply of the imported good is inelastic, then also reduction in import level may not be very significant. So in that case also, the desired cut in imports is possible only by the implementation of quota. Thirdly, the implementation of tariff requires large legislative and administrative process in any democratic country, and that involves time lag. Whereas in case of quotas, time lag is absent and they can be implemented quickly. Next, we consider import under imperfectly competitive market structure. Let us assume that the country imports a good and its import competing production is controlled by only one firm. So, the import competing industry is composed of a single firm and the firm enjoys monopoly power in the domestic market. We also assume that the country is a small one. Therefore, price of the imported good in the foreign country will not change or will not reduce by the trade policy of this country. Let us consider this figure, figure 4. Here, D is the demand curve for the importable product in the domestic economy, and corresponding to this demand curve, we have MR curve. Here, PW is the international price of the imported good, and at this price PW, supply of imports is perfectly elastic. Here MC represents the monopoly firm's marginal cost curve. Under autarky or under no trade situation, the firm would choose the profit maximizing output level where its MC curve cuts its MR curve, and this happens at the output level QM, and the firm will charge PM price for this output. But here, under free trade, the firm will charge the world price of the good, PW, because if the firm charges any price higher than this PW level, then no one will buy its product as cheaper imports are available in the market. Therefore, the firm limits its price to the level PW and produces the quantity level QF, where PW price is equal to its marginal cost. At PW price, it is observed that domestic demand is DF. So, at PW price, volume of import is DF minus QF. Let us assume that the country imposes now tariff of the amount T. Then domestic price increases from PW to PW plus T. The monopolist firm will charge this price PW plus T because if it charges any price above PW plus T level, then again no one will buy its product and they will buy cheaper imports. So, the firm charges PW plus T price and produces QT level where this price is just equal to its marginal cost. We see here that at PW plus T price, volume of demand is DT. So now volume of import is DT minus QT, which is lower than the previous level. So imports fall due to tariff. Let us now consider imposition of quota in this monopoly market situation. Suppose the government imposes a limit on its import to the level Q bar. Then the domestic demand facing the monopolist will be original domestic demand less the volume of allowed imports. In figure 6, the new demand curve is DQ. It is parallel to the original demand curve D, but it is shifted leftward to Q bar units. Corresponding to this new demand curve DQ, we have marginal revenue curve MRQ. Now, this MRQ curve cuts the MC curve at this point, and from this intersection point, we see that the firm maximizes profit by producing QQ level and by charging PQ price. Now we compare tariff and quota in this monopoly market situation. If the government imposes tariff at the rate T, then it leads to the level of import Q bar. Instead of tariff, government can simply limit the volume of import to the level Q bar by implementing quota. But we see that results are not same in two situations. Due to imposition of tariff, domestic price of the imported good rises from the free trade price PW to PW plus T level. And the monopolist firm produces QT output level in that situation. But when quota is implemented, the monopoly firm produces QQ output level and it charges PQ price level. So it is clear that in case of quota, production level is lower than tariff situation and price level is higher than tariff situation. What we see that when the government imposes tariff, then the monopolistic domestic industry behaves as if it were competitive industry. It limits its price to the level that is just equal to free trade plus the rate of tariff, because the monopolist firm knows if it charges any price higher than this PW plus T price level, then they will not be, or the monopoly firm will not be able to sell its product to the consumers, because consumers will then shift to the cheaper imports that are available in the market. So, in this case, the power of raising domestic price is limited for the monopoly firm. On the other hand, when the monopoly firm is protected by quota, it cannot behave like a competitive industry. Rather, it does not behave like competitive industry, because in that case, the monopoly firm knows that it can charge any price, and at that high price level, the monopoly firm will be able to sell its product to the consumers, because volume of imports cannot exceed the quota level. So, availability of the imported good within the domestic market will just equal to the domestic supply plus the allowed import level, that is quota. Here, there is no scope for the consumers to shift to the cheaper imports, because import is restricted in that situation. So from this analysis, it is clear that quota provides absolute protection to the domestic monopoly firm. Actually, quota creates more monopoly power than tariff, and the domestic monopoly firm can raise the price of the product to a very high level when government implement quota, and that is not possible when government implements tariff. So it can be said that if the governments of different countries are concerned about monopoly power, domestic monopoly power, then they should implement tariffs, not quotas, as instrument of trade policy. So in this model, we learned that what is the meaning of tariff and quota, and we have analyzed the welfare effects of tariff and quota, and we learned that quotas are more harmful than tariffs. It is true that both quotas and tariffs distort the incentives to produce and consume, but in case of tariffs, price mechanism operate, whereas in case of quotas, price mechanism does not operate. Moreover, in case of tariffs, government earns revenue, so it provides the government with a source of funding. But in case of quotas, government does not earn any revenue. Quotas generate economic rent that is enjoyed by importers. Again, in case of tariffs, there is a scope for the country, actually for the large countries, there is a scope to gain, as there is a part of terms of trade gain in case of tariff along with data loss. But in case of quota, this gain part is totally absent. Next, we have considered tariff and quota under imperfect market condition, and specifically we have considered monopoly market situation where we know that the demand curve facing the firm is downward sloping, and in that case we see that in case of tariff, the monopoly firm cannot raise its price to any level, because in that case monopoly firm will not be able to sell its product. So under tariff, monopoly firm behaves like a competitive industry, whereas in case of quota, monopoly firm does not behave like competitive industry. Rather, it exerts full power of monopoly. In that case, it raises its price to a high level because of non-availability of the import to any level. Under quota, the supply of import is limited. It cannot exceed the permissible level of import, and the monopoly firm takes the benefit of that shortage of supply of the imported good in the domestic market and exerts more monopoly power by producing less and charging high price. So we see that to restrict the monopoly power in the domestic economy, governments should implement tariff rather than quota. That's all from this module. Thank you.